Observe this single-celled organism. It lacks a brain, a nervous system, and a culture. Yet when a toxic chemical enters its environment, it immediately darts away. It is executing a clear choice. At this microscopic level, we see a basic three-step operation. A stimulus arrives, the organism evaluates the impact on its structural integrity, and it physically moves. It is a want comparator, a primitive biological engine determining survival. This cellular mechanism, the drive to approach what sustains life and avoid what destroys it, is the absolute lowest denominator of decision-making. Before we had thoughts, we had vectors of motion. This reflex has spent 4 billion years refining its ability to persist. Every moral framework humans have ever constructed is a sophisticated elaboration of this single primitive drive towards conatus, the bare persistent seeking of a system. That same approach or avoid reflex drives your decisions today. Your body flags situations as positive or negative through physical signals long before your conscious mind begins to deliberate. This illustration shows the nervous system's response to a perceived threat. Notice the intense activity in the chest and gut. Neurologist Antonio Damasio identifies these as SAMAG markers. They are physical, emotional signals that act as the biological implementation of that ancient cellular comparator. Human language and ethical frameworks function as high-level interfaces for these measurements. We are observing the machinery of survival translated into the vocabulary of right and wrong. Because these responses are tied to the biological requirement for homeostasis, our morality functions as a physical measurement. We are sensing the objective structural conditions of our own survival. If our biology is performing a mathematical calculation to survive, we can define the specific variables involved. We can move from biological feelings to the geometry of physics. This diagram shows a phase space, a map of all possible future states physically accessible to an entity. The branching web represents the total terrain of what is possible for that entity over time. This represents the metric P times T, the volume of accessible possibility multiplied by time. This volume is the fundamental measure of value for any continuing system. We can now define ethical actions by their impact on this space. Good corresponds to a topographical expansion of this future possibility space. It is an operator that increases the degrees of freedom available to interacting agents. Evil functions as an entropic operator that actively contracts or collapses this space. It severs the branching lines of potential, forcing a victim's trajectory into a narrow, highly constrained deterministic tunnel. These definitions are stripped of human sentiment. They describe the physical laws of geometric expansion and entropic collapse within a system's state space. Human actions exist as sequential causal chains across time. To judge a behavior, we must look at every link in that sequence. This sequence shows a series of actions. According to the chain rule of possibility time, we evaluate the entire chain based on its lowest denominator. The strength of the chain is its weakest or most destructive link. If a single node in this sequence produces a net contraction of possibility that is not cancelled out, the entire chain becomes mathematically negative. The damage at one point propagates through the entire set. Consider the case of funding a functional hospital through violent exploitation. The hospital provides a net expansion, but the exploitation creates a negative node of contraction. In this model, the destructive collapse caused by the exploitation physically overrides the positive expansion of the building. You cannot average out the harm. The uncancelled negative link dictates the final state of the chain. The objective topological math proves that subjective good intentions are irrelevant. A harmful act is a physical disruption of possibility that no stated motive can erase. We are arriving at the axiom of objective truth. This is a shift toward measuring mortality, the objective continuity or cessation of a system, rather than debating subjective morality. When you experience a moral instinct, you are witnessing your biology recognizing a topological threat. Your body detects an entropic collapse in your potential. Ethical living requires acting as a deliberate architect of possibility. It is the practice of navigating and maintaining the complex relational geometry of your environment. Realized good is the physical defense of a system's capacity to continue into the future. It is a rigorous safeguarding of the patterns that allow life to generate its next viable state. You are biologically wired as a possibility engine. Your moral compass is the map of functional survival, expanding the horizon of what can be.